At the promotion meeting I smiled and said, "I can't wait for my raise." My husband, the boss, laughed. "Raise? Oh no, I gave it to Hazel." HR confirmed I wasn't even considered. Hazel grinned. "Forgot to mention it." That afternoon I cleared my desk. But what I did afterward, nobody saw it coming. "I can't wait for my raise," I announced to the conference room, my portfolio of achievements heavy in my hands. Jasper looked up from his phone for the first time since I'd walked in, and the expression on his face made my chest tighten. Not pride. Not approval. Amusement. Pure, undisguised amusement at my expense. Raise. He set down his phone with deliberate slowness. "Oh no, Aurora. I gave it to Hazel." The conference room's fluorescent lights suddenly felt too bright, too harsh, illuminating every face turned toward me with varying degrees of discomfort and pity. Bethany from HR cleared her throat and slid a folder across the mahogany table. Her manicured nails tapped against the cover twice before withdrawing. "You weren't even considered for the position, Aurora. The decision was made last week." I stood there, portfolio still clutched against my chest, watching Hazel Morrison walk through the glass doors in her new red heels. The same heels she'd shown me last month, asking if they were too much for the office. I'd told her they were perfect for making an impression. She caught my eye and offered the slightest shrug. "Forgot to mention it," she said, settling into the leather chair directly across from where I stood. "Before we continue, if you've ever been overlooked for a promotion you deserved, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps us share stories of women who refuse to accept less than their worth." The portfolio in my hands contained 8 months of evidence that I'd single-handedly saved this company from hemorrhaging clients. The Campbell Industries campaign alone, which I'd worked on until 3 a.m. for 2 straight weeks, had retained a contract worth $2 million this quarter. The Morrison Hotels crisis that I'd resolved before it hit the media. The complete overhaul of our digital marketing strategy that increased engagement by 340%. But none of that mattered now. I set the portfolio on the table without opening it. "I see. Well then, I'll need the afternoon to transition my current projects." "That won't be necessary," Hazel interjected, her voice carrying a confidence I'd never heard before. "I've already been briefed on everything. Jasper's been bringing me up to speed for the past month." The past month. While I'd been preparing my promotion presentation, practicing my pitch in the shower, calculating how the raise would finally allow us to renovate the kitchen, my husband had been secretly training my replacement. The same husband who'd listened to me rehearse my talking points over dinner. Who'd nodded encouragingly when I'd shown him my portfolio layout. Who'd made love to me last night without once mentioning that this meeting would be my professional execution. I managed to walk out of that conference room without saying another word. My desk sat in the corner of the marketing department, a cubicle barely large enough for my chair and filing cabinet despite my unofficial role as the person who actually ran things. Through Hazel's office window, the actual marketing director's office that had sat mostly empty for 2 years, I could see shopping bags from her lunch hour sprees still piled on her credenza. Timothy was waiting by my desk holding his tablet with that familiar look of controlled panic. "Aurora, the Campbell Industries presentation needs final approval before." "Give it to Hazel," I said, pulling my personal items from the drawers. The orchid I'd nursed through 2 winters. The coffee mug Emma had given me that read, "World's Best Multitasker." The framed photo from our company retreat where I'd been named Employee of the Quarter for the 3rd consecutive time. But Hazel doesn't know the Campbell account. She's never even met their team. I paused, looking at Timothy's earnest face. He was 24, fresh from graduate school, brilliant but still naive enough to believe hard work guaranteed recognition. Then I guess she'd better learn quickly. The drive home took 17 minutes. I counted every red light, every turn signal, every mile that put distance between me and that building where I'd given everything and received nothing in return. Our house sat on a tree-lined street in Portland's Laurelhurst neighborhood, the kind of place successful couples bought when they were building their futures together. The kitchen still needed renovating. Now it would stay exactly as it was. I set the box of my belongings on the dining table and noticed the Campbell Industries contract sitting on Jasper's home office desk. The margins were filled with handwritten notes. Not Jasper's angular scrawl that I knew from 12 years of marriage. These loops and curves belonged to Hazel. Dates going back 6 weeks. Strategy notes about approaches I'd developed. Client relationship details I'd painstakingly built. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma at college. "How did the big meeting go, Mom? Did you get it?" I stared at those words, thinking about the tuition bills, the student loans we'd co-signed, the promises we'd made about supporting her dreams while I'd apparently been too blind to see my own being methodically dismantled. The house felt different already. Not like a home where two successful people built their life together, but like a stage where I'd been performing the role of supportive wife while missing all the signs that the show was ending. The Campbell Industries presentation I'd perfected at 5:30 that morning still sat in my laptop, ready for a meeting that would never happen. The coffee maker still held the remnants of Jasper's perfect 2 sugars no cream brew that I'd made while believing we were partners. 3 months I'd had that Thursday afternoon circled in red on my calendar. 3 months of believing that excellence would be rewarded, that dedication meant something, that the person sleeping beside me every night actually saw my value beyond my ability to fix problems and save accounts while someone else got the credit. I opened my laptop and began making a list. Not of achievements or presentations or campaigns that had saved the company millions. This list was different. This one started with every password, every client contact, every system I'd built that they didn't even know existed. Because while Jasper thought he'd simply denied me a raise, what he'd actually done was light a fuse. They just didn't know it was burning yet. The list sat on my laptop screen, cursor blinking at the end of the last password I'd documented. My hands moved to close the computer, but something made me pause. The house felt too quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes you hear your own heartbeat. Jasper would be home in 2 hours, and I needed to decide what kind of evening this would be. The dutiful wife preparing dinner, or the woman who just had her career detonated by the person who was supposed to have her back. My phone vibrated against the dining table. Timothy again. Morrison Hotels is in full panic mode. Hazel told them you quit without notice. They're threatening to pull the contract. I stared at the message, feeling something shift in my chest. Not anger exactly, but a cold clarity that made everything sharper. Hazel had already started her narrative. Aurora the deserter. Aurora the unprofessional. Aurora who couldn't handle not getting her way. I typed back, "Not my problem anymore," but deleted it without sending. Timothy didn't deserve coldness meant for others. The front door opened at 6:47, Jasper's usual time when he wasn't working late with associates or in meetings I now wondered about. His keys hit the bowl by the entrance with their familiar clink. His footsteps moved through the foyer, paused at the dining room where my box of office belongings still sat, then continued to the kitchen where I stood chopping vegetables for a salad neither of us would eat. "Hey," he said, loosening his tie. "What's for dinner?" The casual normalcy of it made my hand tighten on the knife. He moved behind me to get a beer from the refrigerator, his cologne filling the space between us. The same cologne I'd bought him for Christmas, selected because it reminded me of confidence and success. Now it smelled like betrayal, pretending everything was fine. "Jasper." I set the knife down carefully, turning to face him. "We need to talk about today." He popped the beer cap against the counter edge, a habit I'd asked him to stop because it left marks on the granite. "What about today?" "The promotion meeting." "Hazel. The fact that you've been training her for my job for a month while I prepared a presentation you knew was pointless." He sighed, the kind of exhale that suggested I was being dramatic. "Or we discussed this possibility. The board has concerns about appearances. A husband promoting his wife doesn't look good, especially with the Fletcher acquisition coming up." The Fletcher acquisition I structured. The one where I spent 3 weeks courting their CMO to make sure the transition would be smooth. Which is exactly why we need someone like Hazel in that role. Someone without personal connections that could be seen as conflicts of interest. He took a long drink of his beer, avoiding my eyes. "This is what's best for the company." "Someone like Hazel who asked me last week what ROI stands for?" His jaw tightened. "She's learning. On my frameworks. Using my client relationships. Taking credit for campaigns I built at 3 in the morning while you slept beside me. That's how business works, Aurora. You knew that when we got married. You knew there would be complicated situations." I laughed, surprising both of us. Not a bitter laugh or a sad one, but genuine amusement at the mental gymnastics required to make this my fault. Complicated situations. That's what we're calling it when you systematically hand over my work to someone else while lying to my face about it. I never lied. Every morning for the past month, You watched me prepare for that meeting. You listened to me practice my presentation over dinner. You made love to me last night knowing that today you would humiliate me in front of the entire leadership team. What would you call that? He set his beer on the counter, the condensation already forming a ring on the granite. I'd call it protecting you. Do you know what people say about us? About how you only have your position because of me. This way, when you succeed, it's on your own merit. When I succeed, I've already succeeded. Every campaign that's kept us profitable this quarter has my fingerprints all over it. The only thing you've protected me from is getting credit for my own work. The doorbell rang, sharp and intrusive. We stood frozen, neither moving to answer it. It rang again, followed by knocking. That's probably Margaret, I said, remembering my sister's text about dropping by with some books she'd borrowed. I'll get it. But when I opened the door, Hazel Morrison stood on my porch. She'd changed from the red heels into designer sneakers, traded her power suit for yoga clothes that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her smile was different now, more genuine, like we were girlfriends about to grab coffee. Hi, Aurora. I hope I'm not interrupting dinner. Behind me, I heard Jasper's footsteps approaching. Hazel, what are you doing here? You left your laptop at the office, she said to him, not me, producing his MacBook from her oversized purse. You said you needed it for the Fletcher presentation tomorrow. I thought I'd drop it by on my way to Pilates. On her way to Pilates. Our house was 15 minutes out of the way from the office to any Pilates studio in Portland. I watched Jasper take the laptop, his fingers brushing hers in the exchange. The gesture was small, practiced, familiar. Thanks, he said. I completely forgot. No problem. Hazel's eyes flicked to me, then back to him. About tomorrow's presentation, should I use Aurora's deck or create something fresh? Create something fresh, he said without hesitation. We need a new perspective. She nodded, satisfied. Great. I'll see you at 7 for our breakfast meeting. Her attention shifted to me fully for the first time. Aurora, I'm sorry about today. I know it must have been unexpected. But I'm sure you understand it's what's best for everyone. The words were perfectly chosen. Not an admission of wrongdoing, not an acknowledgement of what she'd taken, just the kind of corporate sympathy that meant nothing and cost less. I could have responded with anger, with accusations, with the dozen questions burning in my throat about how long she'd been planning this, how many of my ideas she'd already claimed, how it felt to steal someone else's life's work. That I smiled. The same smile I'd perfected in conference rooms and client dinners, the one that gave away nothing while suggesting everything was under control. Of course, Hazel. I understand perfectly. She blinked, perhaps expecting tears or shouting or some other display of emotion she could report back to the office tomorrow. When none came, she shifted uncomfortably. Well, I should get to class. After she left, Jasper closed the door and turned to me. See? She's trying to be professional about this. Professional, I repeated. Is that what we're calling showing up at your employee's house in workout clothes to deliver a laptop you could have survived without until tomorrow? Don't make this something it's not. But I was already walking away, heading upstairs to our bedroom. In the closet, I pulled out my suitcase, the one we'd bought for our honeymoon 12 years ago. It still had the luggage tag from Maui, faded but readable. Paradise Found, it said. I almost laughed at the irony. What are you doing? Jasper stood in the doorway, his beer forgotten downstairs. Getting some space to think. Aurora, don't be dramatic. It's just a job. I paused, holding the sweater Emma had given me last Christmas. You're right. It's just a job. And this is just a marriage where my husband orchestrates my professional humiliation while his new protégé drops by our house in yoga pants. Nothing dramatic about that at all. The suitcase sat half-packed on our bed, Jasper watching from the doorway as I folded another blouse. Neither of us had slept. He'd stayed downstairs most of the night while I lay awake calculating 12 years of marriage against 8 months of lies. By Friday morning, the arithmetic still didn't balance. My phone buzzed at 6 a.m. with an automated message from IT. Your remote access has been terminated. Please contact your administrator for questions. I grabbed my company laptop from the nightstand, fingers flying across the keyboard before they could lock me out completely. The download bar crept across the screen. 8 months of emails, project files, client correspondence. Everything that proved what I'd built and what had been stolen. An email from 3 months ago stopped me cold. Jasper to Hazel, marked confidential. Aurora is too emotionally invested in her campaigns to see the bigger picture. We need someone who can separate feelings from strategy. Let's discuss your transition timeline over dinner Thursday. Thursday. I remembered that Thursday. I'd been visiting my mother in Seattle, helping her recover from hip surgery. Jasper had said he was too busy with quarterly reports to come with me. The download finished just as the laptop screen went black, access revoked. But I had what I needed. I took screenshots with my phone while scrambling eggs Jasper wouldn't eat, maintaining the bizarre normalcy of a morning routine while our marriage dissolved in real time. He sat at the kitchen island pretending to read news on his tablet, both of us playing roles in a show that had already closed. I'll stay at Margaret's for a few days, I said, sliding eggs onto a plate I knew would go untouched. This is ridiculous, Aurora. You're overreacting to a professional decision. My phone rang before I could respond. Margaret's name flashed on the screen and I almost laughed at the timing. Hey Max. Don't you hey Max me. I just saw your LinkedIn post about exploring new opportunities. What happened? And don't give me corporate speak. I'm your sister. I glanced at Jasper, who'd gone rigid at his tablet. It's complicated. Can I call you back? Or wait. Before you hang up, I need to tell you something. Remember 6 weeks ago when I was downtown for that conference? I saw Jasper at Romano's with that woman from his office, the one with the red hair. Hazel. The kitchen suddenly felt too small. Romano's. They were at the back corner table, the one you always say is too romantic for business dinners. She was laughing at something he said, touching his hand. I figured you knew about the meeting, but something felt off about it. 6 weeks ago. I'd been working late on the Morrison Hotel's crisis, eating takeout at my desk while Jasper was supposedly at a board dinner. Thanks for telling me, Margaret. I'll call you later. After I hung up, Jasper's tablet lay flat on the counter, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge. It wasn't what you're thinking. I'm not thinking anything. I'm just connecting dots that should have been obvious months ago. I spent the rest of Friday turning our dining room into an investigation center. The table I'd bought for hosting dinner parties became a landscape of evidence. 3 distinct piles emerged as the sun set over Portland, each more damning than the last. The first pile contained Hazel's expense reports for the past 6 months. Client dinners at restaurants our clients never visited. Conference registrations for events she never attended. Travel receipts that didn't match any scheduled meetings. Nearly $40,000 in questionable expenses, all approved by Jasper without question. The second pile was my proof of ownership. Every Campbell Industries document with my metadata embedded showing creation dates, revision histories, my digital signature on every strategic decision. The presentation Hazel claimed to have developed last month? I'd created the template in January, refined it through 17 versions, each one time-stamped and tracked. But the third pile made my hands shake. Security badge records I'd saved months ago for an efficiency audit, never submitted because I'd found something else entirely. Jasper and Hazel's badges swiping into the executive floor at 11 p.m. on 7 different Saturdays. Always when I was in Seattle with my mother. Always leaving within minutes of each other around 2 a.m. By midnight, the evidence covered every inch of the table. My phone had been silent except for work contacts asking why I'd disappeared and Emma texting about her classes, unaware her parents' marriage was unraveling thread by thread. I couldn't tell her yet. Not until I understood the full scope of what I was looking at. Sunday arrived gray and drizzling, Portland's signature weather matching my mood. I was deep in spreadsheets when my phone rang with a number I recognized but rarely saw. Dennis Palmer, the longest-serving board member and one of the few people who'd known me before I became Jasper's wife. Aurora. His voice was careful, measured. I heard about Thursday's meeting. News travels fast. Indeed it does. Listen, I'm calling from my personal phone for a reason. There are changes coming at the company and you should protect your interests. I set down the Campbell Industries file I'd been reviewing. What kind of changes? I can't say much, but not everyone on the board agrees with recent personnel decisions. Some of us remember who actually brought in the Morrison Hotel's account. Who saved Campbell Industries from walking away. Dennis, are you trying to tell me something? He paused long enough that I thought the call had dropped. I'm telling you that workplace relationships that cross professional boundaries concern the board. Especially when they affect company performance and shareholder value. Document everything, Aurora. Everything. I already am. Good. And Aurora? You might want to review the company's ethics policy, particularly the section about disclosure of intimate relationships between executives and direct reports. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, then at the security badge records showing those late-night office visits. Dennis had just confirmed what the evidence suggested, but my mind had been refusing to process. This wasn't just about professional betrayal or even marital deception. Jasper and Hazel's relationship had crossed lines that could destroy them both. I picked up the Campbell Industries contract, noting Hazel's handwritten margins again. Her notes weren't strategic insights. They were personal reminders. Jay says emphasize innovation. Check with Jay before finalizing. Jay likes this approach. Jay. Not Jasper. Not Mr. Wallace. Just Jay, with a familiarity that predated her promotion by months. The truth wasn't unraveling anymore. It had already unraveled completely, leaving me holding threads of a life I thought I'd understood. But understanding and accepting were different things entirely. And what I'd do with this knowledge? That was another question altogether. The question of what to do with this knowledge kept me awake Sunday night, staring at the ceiling while rain drummed against the windows. By Monday morning I had my answer. If they wanted to play corporate games, I'd show them what happened when they underestimated their opponent. The coffee shop on Burnside was deliberately chosen, far enough from the office district that we wouldn't run into anyone, busy enough that our conversation would disappear into the general noise. Rebecca Chin arrived first, looking polished despite having been unemployed for 4 months since her sudden departure as CFO. She'd lost weight, her suit hanging looser than it should, but her handshake remained firm. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, settling into the corner booth I'd claimed earlier. "When you called, I wondered how long it would take before someone else saw what was happening there." Rebecca wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "Let me guess. Jasper finally showed his true colors?" "What do you mean?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. The monthly finance meetings that somehow always ran late when his wife was traveling. The suggestions that we discuss budget projections over drinks. The way he'd stand too close when reviewing reports, his hand on my lower back. She met my eyes directly. "I documented everything, Aurora. Every inappropriate comment, every meeting that crossed lines. HR did nothing because Bethany reports to him." My stomach turned, but I kept my expression neutral. "Why didn't you come to me? You were his wife." What was I supposed to say? "Your husband keeps trying to corner me in empty conference rooms." She pulled out a flash drive from her purse. "But I kept records. Financial ones too. Hazel's department shows profits on paper, but the actual numbers tell a different story." The flash drive contained spreadsheets that made my evidence look amateur. Hazel had been billing hours to client accounts for work never performed, shifting expenses between departments to hide losses, claiming wins on campaigns that had actually failed. $3 million in fabricated success over 18 months. My second meeting was with Jennifer Park, former head of strategic planning, who'd resigned suddenly 6 months ago. She chose a table near the window, constantly checking the street as if expecting someone to appear. "Hazel Morrison is a fraud," she said without preamble. "Every successful campaign she's claimed came from someone else. She can't even write a basic creative brief without help." When I pointed this out to Jasper, he suggested I was being territorial. When I provided proof, he said I was creating a hostile work environment. She slid a folder across the table. Email threads showing her incompetence, client complaints about her handling of accounts, and my termination agreement with its very generous silence clause that I'm currently violating. The third meeting almost didn't happen. Sandra Williams, former VP of Operations, initially refused to meet, but when I mentioned Rebecca and Jennifer's names, she agreed. We sat in her car in the parking structure, engine running. "I lasted longer than the others because I'm older, less threatening," Sandra said, her voice steady despite her white knuckles on the steering wheel. "But when I discovered Hazel was using company credit cards for personal expenses and reported it, Jasper accused me of targeting her due to jealousy. Me, jealous of a woman half my age who can't calculate basic ROI. She handed me a manila envelope. Copies of the credit card statements. Designer clothes, jewelry, weekend trips. All buried in legitimate expense reports. All approved by your husband. By the time I got home, I had enough ammunition to destroy them both." But ammunition without strategy was just noise. I spent the rest of Monday crafting the perfect email to the board, 17 drafts until each word accomplished exactly what I needed. Not accusations but concerns. Not attacks but questions. Professional worry about patterns that might affect shareholder value. The email highlighted correlations without stating causation. Hazel's promotion timeline matched suspicious spending increases. Client retention had dropped 20% since she'd taken on larger responsibilities, but the losses were hidden by redistributing accounts. Employee turnover in the marketing department had tripled, with exit interviews citing leadership concerns that were never addressed. I attached Rebecca's financial analysis, scrubbed of anything that could identify her as the source. The numbers would speak for themselves to anyone who understood basic accounting. Which thankfully the board did even if Jasper assumed they didn't. Tuesday brought an unexpected interruption. Emma stood at my door with her backpack and a concerned expression, having driven up from Eugene without warning. "Mom, your texts have been weird. What's going on?" I looked at my daughter, 21 years old, with her father's eyes but my determination, and made a decision. "Come in. I'll show you." She surveyed the dining room table covered in evidence, the laptop with multiple spreadsheets open, the legal pads filled with timeline notes. "Is Dad having an affair?" "Among other things." "With Hazel?" She didn't sound surprised. "She's always hanging around at family events, laughing too loud at his jokes. Last Thanksgiving she called him Jazzy." I wanted to throw cranberry sauce at her. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because you seemed happy." "Because I thought maybe I was imagining things." He picked up one of the security badge reports. "But this isn't imagination, is it?" Emma spent the next 3 hours setting up an encrypted email system, a VPN, and secure cloud storage for my documents. "Computer science major, remember?" she said, typing commands I didn't understand. "If you're going to war, at least protect your communications." We worked together until past midnight, mother and daughter united in purpose. She admitted things I hadn't known. How Jasper would diminish my accomplishments at dinners, claiming my strategies were really his ideas simplified for implementation. How he told her boyfriend last Christmas that I was good at execution but needed help with vision. "You're the smartest person I know, Mom. He just couldn't stand that you were smarter than him." Wednesday afternoon found me at the grocery store, maintaining the pretense of normalcy by buying wine for book club. My phone rang as I loaded Pinot Grigio into my cart. "Marcus Whitman, CEO of Meridian Global, our biggest competitor." "Mrs. Wallace? I've been following your situation with interest. We're expanding our marketing division and could use someone with your expertise." I wheeled my cart to the parking lot, rain starting to fall as I found my car. "How did you?" "Portland's business community is smaller than you think. Word travels when talent becomes available. I'm offering you the director position, but that's just the start. Bring me 3 major accounts and I'll make you VP within 6 months." Standing in that parking lot, rain streaming down my windshield, I negotiated the kind of package I'd never have dared ask for at Jasper's company. Signing bonus, equity shares, and yes, the ability to approach select clients about transitioning their accounts. "I'll take it," I said, watching the rain wash everything clean. "Excellent. Can you start Monday?" "Absolutely." The fuse was lit. The email to the board would go out Thursday night. My resignation letter was already drafted. The evidence was backed up in 3 locations. All that remained was watching it burn. Thursday night at 11:47 p.m., I hit send on the email to the board members, then closed my laptop and went to bed. There was nothing more to do but wait. The fuse had been lit, and by Monday morning, the explosion would be impossible to ignore. I woke at 6 a.m. to 17 text messages. Timothy's came in rapid succession starting at 7:43. Emergency board meeting called. Jasper looks like he hasn't slept. Linda just walked out. What is happening? Linda Martinez had been Jasper's executive assistant for 3 years, the kind of unflappable professional who could handle any crisis with calm efficiency. According to Timothy's breathless updates, she'd been called into the boardroom at 8 a.m., questioned about the security badge records, and asked to explain the numerous late-night office entries. She'd stood up, removed her company badge, placed it on the table, and walked out without saying a word. Her silence said everything. By 9 a.m., more texts flooded in from contacts throughout the building. The board had been sequestered for 2 hours. Hazel had been seen crying in the bathroom. Bethany from HR was frantically making phone calls from the lobby because she'd been locked out of the executive conference room. I made coffee in my kitchen, Emma still asleep upstairs, and opened my laptop to execute phase 2. The LinkedIn article I'd been refining for days was ready. When Merit Meets Politics, a case study in corporate leadership failure. No names, no company identifiers, just a carefully crafted analysis of what happens when personal relationships override professional judgment in executive decisions. I published it at exactly noon when I knew most professionals would be checking their feeds during lunch. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 30 minutes, 47 comments had appeared. Women shared stories of being passed over for less qualified male colleagues. Men described watching incompetent friends of leadership get promoted while real talent walked out the door. The comment thread became a collective therapy session for everyone who'd ever been professionally betrayed. But at 2:17 p.m. the comment that mattered most appeared. Robert Campbell, CEO of Campbell Industries, our most valuable client, wrote simply, "Leadership transitions should never compromise project continuity or client relationships. Concerned about recent changes affecting our account management. Would appreciate direct communication from Aurora Wallace regarding our ongoing campaigns." My phone rang within minutes. Robert's direct line. "Aurora, I just learned about your departure. This is unacceptable. You're the only reason we've stayed with that company. We've invested $2 million based on strategies you developed. I understand your concerns, Robert. The transition happened quickly. There is no transition. Hazel Morrison called me this morning claiming she'd been managing our account all along. She couldn't answer basic questions about our target demographics. She didn't even know we'd shifted our focus to the Southwest market last quarter. I'm sure she'll get up to speed quickly," I said, maintaining professional neutrality while knowing Hazel couldn't get up to speed on a stationary bicycle. "We need you, Aurora. If you're available for independent consulting, Campbell Industries would like to retain your services immediately. I've actually accepted a position with Meridian Global. I start Monday." There was a pause, then a laugh. Marcus Whitman finally got smart. Good for him. And good for us. We'll be reaching out to Meridian about transitioning our account. The dominoes were falling faster than I'd anticipated. By 3 p.m., Hazel had sent a company-wide email that would become legendary for its complete lack of self-awareness. She claimed credit for the Campbell Industries relationship, the Morrison Hotel's crisis resolution, and 3 other major wins that had my digital fingerprints all over them. What she didn't realize was that I'd already forwarded the original project files, complete with metadata showing creation dates and revision histories, to those very clients that morning. Morrison Hotels called Jasper directly at 3:45. Timothy, who sat near Jasper's office, texted me fragments of the conversation he could hear through the door. "No, sir, I understand your concerns. Yes, Aurora was integral. We can ensure continuity. Please don't make any hasty decisions." Sterling Communications followed at 4:15. Then Pinnacle Brands at 4:42. 3 major accounts threatening to walk, each worth millions in annual revenue. Each specifically citing concerns about losing their primary strategic contact. Me. Emma came downstairs around 4, finding me at the dining table surrounded by contracts from Meridian and resignation paperwork for Jasper's company. "The internet is loving your article," she said, showing me her phone. "It's been shared 800 times. Someone started a hashtag merit over politics. I didn't mean to start a movement." "Maybe not, but you're giving people permission to tell their own stories. That matters, Mom." At 6:27 I heard Jasper's car in the driveway. Emma looked at me questioning. "Want me to leave?" "Stay. Witness this." He came through the door like a hurricane that had exhausted itself, all spent fury and depleted energy. His tie was loose, his hair disheveled, his face the gray color of someone watching their world collapse in real time. He didn't acknowledge Emma, just focused on me with desperate intensity. "Aurora, we need to talk. We're talking. Privately. Emma stays. She should know who her father really is." He glanced at our daughter, then back to me. "Fine. The board is conducting a full investigation. Linda quit. 3 clients are threatening to leave. You've destroyed everything we built." "Everything you built?" I have 8 months of documentation proving I built it while you were busy doing whatever you were doing with Hazel at 11 p.m. on Saturdays. His face went white. That's not. I have the security records, Jasper. The expense reports. The emails where you called me too emotionally invested, while planning to hand my job to your girlfriend. She's not. Stop. I pulled out a manila folder, Catherine Volkov's article printed and highlighted. This publishes tomorrow. Business Pacific Quarterly. 17 employees, all quoted anonymously describing the toxic culture you created. Rebecca Chen's mysterious departure. Jennifer Park's sudden resignation. Sandra Williams's silence agreement. It's all here. He sank into a chair, scanning the pages. Each highlighted quote made him flinch. A culture where personal relationships determined professional advancement. Female executives pushed out for questioning incompetent leadership. Expense irregularities overlooked when the right person was involved. They can't publish this. I'll sue. With what money? Once the board sees the financial documents Rebecca provided, you'll be too busy defending yourself to sue anyone. You vindictive. Careful, Emma interrupted, her voice steel. That's my mother you're about to insult. The woman who saved your company while you were playing executive with your side piece. He looked between us, perhaps finally understanding that he'd lost more than just a corporate game. Aurora, please. I'll give you the promotion. 50% raise. Hazel will be gone by tomorrow. I stood, gathering my papers. I've already accepted a position with Meridian Global. Director of Strategic Marketing. They're also interested in acquiring several of your clients who've expressed concern about their current account management. You can't do that. Non-compete clause. The one my lawyer says is unenforceable since you violated the company's ethics policy? That non-compete clause. He had nothing left to say. The man who'd always had an answer, an excuse, a deflection, sat silent in the ruins of his own making. Emma and I left him there, walking upstairs to pack the rest of my things. Tomorrow Catherine's article would hit newsstands. Wednesday I'd start at Meridian. By Friday, Campbell Industries would officially transition their account. The dominoes hadn't just fallen. They'd created a pattern that spelled out exactly who was responsible for their collapse. Emma and I packed the last box in silence, the sound of tape sealing cardboard echoing through the empty bedroom. The house felt hollow already, 12 years of memories boxed and labeled, ready for transport to separate futures. As we carried boxes to the rental truck, neither of us looked back at the home where our family had pretended to thrive while slowly decomposing from the inside. Monday morning arrived crisp and bright, the kind of Portland spring day that made everything feel possible. The Meridian Global building rose 30 floors of gleaming glass and steel in the Pearl District, a testament to what competent leadership could build. My new assistant, David Park, met me in the lobby with a genuine smile and a tablet full of the day's priorities. Ms. Wallace, welcome to Meridian. Your office is ready on the 22nd floor. Corner suite with a view of Mount Hood on clear days. The elevator ride felt like ascending to a different life. When the doors opened, Marcus Whitman stood waiting, coffee in hand. Aurora, perfect timing. Campbell Industries signed their contract this morning. They specifically stipulated that you personally oversee all strategic initiatives. Robert Campbell called you irreplaceable. My office was everything my old cubicle wasn't. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a desk that belonged in an architecture magazine, and a sitting area for client meetings. On the desk sat a nameplate. Aurora Wallace, Director of Strategic Marketing. No one's wife. No one's afterthought. Just my name and my achievement. I sat in the leather chair, running my fingers across the smooth desk surface and pulled off my wedding ring. The thin band of white skin underneath looked vulnerable, unprotected. I placed the ring in the top drawer, next to a photo Emma had insisted I bring. Just the two of us at her high school graduation, both laughing at something off camera. No Jasper. No pretense. Just us. 3 more clients called this morning, David informed me, setting down a list. Morrison Hotels wants to discuss transitioning their account. Sterling Communications is ready to sign. Pinnacle Brands requested a proposal by Friday. Tuesday morning I arrived early to find my email flooded with messages. The Business Pacific Quarterly article had published online at midnight, and print copies were hitting newsstands across Portland. Catherine Volkov had crafted a masterpiece of investigative journalism that never mentioned names but painted a picture so clear that everyone in our industry knew exactly who and what she was describing. The article detailed a prominent Portland marketing executive, whose incompetence was hidden by taking credit for others' work, supported by a company president who valued personal relationships over performance. 17 anonymous employees described a culture of fear, favoritism, and failure disguised as success. The financial analysis, carefully sourced from internal documents, showed a pattern of deception that bordered on fraud. My phone buzzed constantly. Former colleagues sending gratitude and support. Competitors offering positions. Clients confirming their decision to follow me to Meridian. But the message that stopped me cold came from Bethany in HR. Aurora, I'm deeply sorry for my role in what happened. I knew it was wrong but was too afraid of losing my job to speak up. You deserved better. If you have any advice for someone trying to leave a toxic situation, I would be grateful. I wrote back carefully, document everything. Find a labor attorney. Don't sign anything without legal review. You know the truth, use it to protect yourself and others. Good luck. Wednesday evening, Emma drove up from Eugene to help me move into my new apartment. It was smaller than the house, a 2-bedroom in the Alberta Arts District, but every square foot was mine. We hung my awards on the living room wall. Employee of the Quarter plaques that Jasper had relegated to the garage, certificates of achievement he'd said made the house look cluttered. This place already feels more like home, Emma said, unpacking kitchen boxes. No pretending. No walking on eggshells. Just you being you. We sat on the floor eating Chinese takeout from paper containers, surrounded by boxes and bubble wrap, when Emma set down her chopsticks with unusual deliberation. Mom, I need to tell you something. I'm changing my name. What do you mean? I'm taking your maiden name. Wallace. I've already started the paperwork. She met my eyes directly. I don't want to carry the name of a man who could betray you like that. I want the name of the woman who stood up and fought back. The woman who built something from ashes. My throat tightened. Emma, he's still your father. Biologically, yes. But you're my role model. You're the parent who taught me that integrity matters more than convenience, that truth matters more than comfort. I want to be Emma Wallace. Thursday's lunch with Catherine Volkov was supposed to be celebratory. Her article had already been picked up by 3 national publications, and she was writing a follow-up about women rebuilding after professional betrayal. We sat at a riverside restaurant watching boats navigate the Willamette, when the courier appeared. Aurora Wallace? He handed me an envelope that I recognized immediately. Legal documents. Divorce papers. Catherine started to excuse herself, but I waved her to stay. You might as well witness this. It's part of the story. The papers were straightforward. Jasper wanted a quick, quiet dissolution. He'd keep the house, I'd keep my retirement accounts. The prenup I'd insisted on 12 years ago, despite his protests that it showed a lack of trust, protected my inheritance and future earnings. His company stock, which had dropped 15% since Tuesday's article, would be divided according to our original agreement. Most of his net worth had evaporated with the company's plummeting valuation. I signed every page without hesitation, using the same confident signature I'd used that morning on 3 new client contracts worth $8 million in annual revenue. Any regrets? Catherine asked gently. I looked at my bare ring finger, at the divorce papers that would end 12 years of marriage, at my new business card that represented a fresh beginning. Regret suggests I'd do something differently. Every choice led me here, to a corner office, loyal clients, and a daughter who's proud to share my name. The only thing I regret is not seeing the truth sooner. That evening, I stood at my new apartment window, watching the sun set over Portland's skyline. My phone showed 17 new client inquiries, a meeting request from the mayor's office about leading a women's professional development initiative, and a text from Emma. Proud of you, Mom. The Wallace women don't just survive. We thrive. The city lights began to twinkle as darkness fell, and I realized I wasn't watching the end of something. I was watching the beginning. The phoenix had risen and she was just getting started. The night stretched ahead of me, Portland's lights creating constellations against the darkness. I closed my laptop, gathered my things, and headed home to my apartment where no one would judge my success or diminish my achievements. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new clients, new victories. But tonight I would simply be Aurora Wallace, a woman who had rebuilt herself from betrayal into something stronger. 6 months passed in a blur of successes that felt earned rather than stolen. The Pacific Northwest Marketing Summit invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning in October, requesting me as their keynote speaker for the annual conference. 3,000 industry professionals would gather to hear about innovation, leadership, and building ethical corporate cultures. They wanted me to address the topic of transparent meritocracies in modern business. Standing backstage at the convention center, I adjusted my microphone and watched the previous speaker wrap up. Through a gap in the curtains, I could see the audience filling the auditorium. And there, 7 rows back on the left side, sat Jasper. His hair had gone gray at the temples, his suit hung loose on a frame that had lost weight, and his posture carried the defeat of someone who'd lost everything they'd built on lies. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed, "please welcome Aurora Wallace, Chief Marketing Officer of Meridian Global." The applause carried me onto the stage, where 3,000 faces turned toward me with expectation. The lights were bright enough that I couldn't see individual expressions, but I knew Jasper was watching. I could feel his presence like a stone in my shoe, noticeable but no longer painful. 2 years ago, I began, my voice steady and clear, I believed that hard work guaranteed recognition, that excellence would always triumph over politics, that the people closest to us would champion our success rather than steal it. I paused, letting the words settle. I was wrong. And that painful lesson taught me something invaluable. Meritocracy isn't something that happens naturally. It's something we build, protect, and defend every single day. For 45 minutes, I laid out the blueprint for creating corporate cultures where talent thrived and politics died. I shared case studies from Meridian's success, the 3 companies that had followed me and flourished, the employees who'd finally received recognition for their contributions. I never mentioned Jasper or his company by name, but everyone in that room knew the story behind the success. The standing ovation lasted 4 minutes. As I left the stage, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I recognized Jasper's new phone immediately. "Aurora, please. 5 minutes. I need to explain." I deleted it without responding. 3 days later, Marcus Whitman called me into his office. "Aurora, I have an unusual situation. We've been approached about acquiring Cascade Marketing." He paused, watching my face. Jasper's company. The irony was perfect. The company that had denied me a raise, that had given my position to someone unqualified, was now bleeding money and desperate for a buyer. Marcus slid a folder across his desk. "The board wants you to lead the acquisition team. You know their assets better than anyone." The conference room hadn't changed. Same mahogany table, same leather chairs, same floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Portland. But this time I sat at the head of the table, Meridian's legal team flanking me, while Jasper and what remained of his board sat like defendants awaiting sentencing. "The terms are non-negotiable," I began, opening the acquisition folder. "Meridian will absorb your remaining profitable accounts. We'll honor existing client contracts but under new management. As for personnel," I pulled out 2 termination agreements. "These positions are redundant." Hazel Morrison's name topped the first document. According to my sources, she'd been freelancing for small businesses, barely making rent on a studio apartment in Gresham. Her LinkedIn profile showed a string of short-term contracts, none lasting more than 3 months. Jasper's name was on the second. His CEO position would be eliminated immediately, with a modest severance that would barely cover 6 months of expenses. The prenup had protected my assets, but the company's collapse had destroyed his. The house was in foreclosure. His car had been repossessed. The man who'd once laughed at my raise request was now facing financial ruin. I signed both termination papers with the same pen I'd used to pack my desk that Thursday afternoon when everyone thought I was just another discarded employee. The ink flowed smooth and final. "Aurora," Jasper's voice cracked. "Can we discuss? The terms are final. Legal will handle the transition." I stood, gathering my documents. "This meeting is concluded." That evening, my mother Helen arrived from Seattle for my official installation ceremony as CMO. We had dinner at Le Pigeon, Portland's finest restaurant, where she raised her champagne glass with a knowing smile. "I never liked him," she said simply. "Even at your wedding something felt off. The way he always had to be the center of attention, always had to diminish your accomplishments to elevate his own. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? Sometimes we need to learn our own lessons, darling. But I knew you'd figure it out. You've always been stronger than you realized. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. I suspected the affair, you know. The way that Hazel woman looked at him during your birthday dinner last year. Like a predator marking territory. And you said nothing? I trusted you to handle it your way. And look what you've built from those ashes. You didn't just survive, Aurora. You conquered. The next morning I arrived at my office at 5:30 a.m., my old routine transformed but intact. The sunrise painted Mount Hood in shades of gold and pink, a view Jasper's office had never offered. On my desk lay expansion plans for the 3 companies that had followed me from Cascade Marketing to Meridian. Campbell Industries had tripled their marketing budget. Morrison Hotels had launched a nationwide campaign that was already winning awards. Sterling Communications had gone public with a valuation that made early investors wealthy. I'd built an empire from the ruins of betrayal. Not through destruction or petty vengeance, but through excellence that couldn't be denied or stolen. Every success was earned, documented, and credited properly. Every achievement belonged to those who'd actually achieved it. My phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Jasper had updated his profile, seeking new opportunities in consulting. The same platform where he'd once announced my replacement now broadcast his professional collapse. I closed the notification and opened my presentation for the morning's board meeting. 3 new clients were ready to sign, 2 more companies wanted to discuss partnerships, and Emma would be joining the team as a junior strategist after graduation. The Wallace women were building something that would last longer than any marriage, any betrayal, any attempt to diminish our light. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about the titles others gave you or the raises they denied. It was about knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone convince you otherwise. The board meeting presentation went flawlessly, with 3 new clients signing contracts worth $12 million in combined annual revenue. As I walked back to my office, the morning sun illuminated the Meridian Global lobby's marble floors, and I caught my reflection in the polished elevator doors. The woman staring back wore confidence like a tailored suit, earned through trials that would have broken someone weaker. 1 year. That's all it had taken to transform Meridian's marketing division from a competent department into an industry powerhouse. The numbers spoke louder than any promotion speech I'd ever prepared. Revenue had tripled. Client retention sat at 97%. Employee satisfaction scores in my division topped the company charts. Marcus Whitman called me into his office on a Thursday afternoon, exactly 1 year after that devastating promotion meeting. Aurora, the board met yesterday. Unanimous decision. They want you as our newest director. Youngest woman ever appointed to this position in Meridian's 40-year history. I stood in his corner office looking out at the city below. From here I could see the building where I'd once begged for basic recognition, now dwarfed by Meridian's tower. I accept, I said simply, no elaborate speech needed. My work had already said everything. The following Monday, Emma walked into my office wearing her cap and gown, holding her diploma from the University of Oregon. Summa cum laude in marketing and communications, with a thesis on ethical leadership in modern corporations that her professors called groundbreaking. She'd driven straight from her graduation ceremony to accept her position as junior analyst on my team. Ready to get to work, Ms. Wallace? I asked, using her chosen name with pride. Ready to learn from the best, Ms. Wallace, she replied, setting her diploma on my desk. Where do we start? Morrison Hotels. They're launching a European expansion and I want fresh eyes on the campaign. Your perspective matters here, Emma. Not because you're my daughter, but because you've earned this position through your own merit. We worked side by side that afternoon, her natural talent evident in every suggestion she made. She'd inherited my attention to detail but brought her own creative vision that surprised and delighted our clients. When she presented her initial concepts to the Morrison Hotels team via video conference, they immediately approved her direction. No one mentioned she was my daughter. They saw only a brilliant young strategist who understood their brand. 3 weeks later, at the Western Marketing Alliance conference in Seattle, I was reviewing my keynote notes in the speaker's lounge when I heard a familiar voice at the registration desk. Jasper stood there, fumbling with his credit card trying to pay the late registration fee. His suit was off the rack, his shoes scuffed, his entire demeanor that of someone trying to maintain appearances on a shoestring budget. "I'm sorry, sir, but your card was declined," the registration attendant said quietly. "Try it again. There must be a mistake." I watched him pull out another card, then another. Each rejection made his shoulders drop further. His consulting firm, according to industry gossip, consisted of him and 2 junior contractors working out of a shared workspace in the suburbs. His biggest client was a chain of local mattress stores. I could have walked away, let him struggle with the embarrassment. Instead, I approached the desk. "Put Mr. Wallace's registration on Meridian's corporate account," I told the attendant. Jasper turned, his face cycling through surprise, shame, and something that might have been gratitude. "Aurora, It's Ms. Wallace," I corrected gently but firmly. "Enjoy the conference." I walked away before he could respond. Later, during my keynote on building sustainable success through authentic leadership, I saw him in the back row, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When our eyes met briefly, I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no residual pain. Just the neutral acknowledgement of shared history that no longer defined me. After my presentation, a young woman approached me, waiting until the crowd of well-wishers dispersed. She looked about 25, sharp-eyed but exhausted, carrying herself with the particular weight of someone enduring professional injustice. "Ms. Wallace? I'm Grace Thompson. I work at Bradley Marketing and I'm experiencing something similar to what you went through. My manager is taking credit for my campaigns while actively sabotaging my advancement. HR won't help because he's the CEO's golf buddy. I don't know what to do." I led her to a quiet corner of the convention center, away from the networking chaos. "Tell me everything." For 30 minutes, Grace outlined systematic theft of her work, gaslighting about her contributions, and a toxic environment that was destroying her confidence. It was my story with different names, different details, but the same fundamental injustice. "Everyone says I should fight it out, prove my worth, show them they're wrong," Grace said, tears threatening to spill. "But I'm exhausted. Can I tell you something I learned the hard way?" I pulled out my business card and a pen. "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Not in defeat but as strategy. The energy you're spending trying to convince people who refuse to see your value, that same energy could build something extraordinary somewhere else." I wrote a note on the back of my card. "This is Marcus Whitman's direct line at Meridian. Tell him I recommended you. We have an opening in our digital division that would be perfect for someone with your skills." "But what about my current job? Won't leaving look like failure?" "Failure is staying where you're not valued. Success is recognizing your worth and finding, or creating, environments that celebrate it." I handed her the card. "And Grace, document everything before you leave. Not for revenge but for protection. Truth has a way of surfacing when the time is right." 2 hours later, I sat in my hotel room video calling Emma, who was working late on the Morrison Hotel's presentation. "Mom, I just got an email from Robert Campbell himself. He said our European campaign concept is exactly what they've been searching for. He wants to increase the budget by 30%. That's your success, Emma. Own it." I learned from the best. Not just about marketing but about standing tall even when people try to make you small. As we talked, I looked out at Seattle's skyline, lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. Somewhere in this city, Grace Thompson was probably making plans to leave her toxic workplace. Emma was building her career on a foundation of merit and integrity. My mother was telling her book club about her daughter, the CMO and board director. The woman who'd walked out of that conference room with a box of belongings and a heart full of betrayal had transformed into something more powerful than I'd ever imagined. Not through bitterness or revenge, but through the simple act of refusing to accept less than I deserved. I opened my laptop to review the recommendation letter I'd written for Grace, ensuring it captured her potential while carefully avoiding any mention of her current situation. As I signed it with my digital signature, I realized this was my true legacy. Not the titles or the revenue or even the vindication. It was the chain of women I could help climb out of toxic situations, teaching them that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying those who wronged you. Sometimes it's building something so magnificent that their betrayal becomes nothing more than a footnote in your success story. If this story of corporate revenge had you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Aurora handed Jasper the printed article from Catherine Volkov, watching his face pale as he realized his empire was crumbling. What was your favorite moment of justice? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more gripping stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.